Keep your hands up and follow orders. This is the FBI. We have a warrant for...
They handcuffed me and my wife out here. They wanted me to sit on the curb while they were carrying this out, something that I refused to do. They wanted my wife to sit on the curb out here, that she refused to do.
As I was coming out, this big old drone met me.
The only revolutionary organization that's done something here on the ground practically for African people is the one that's come under attack. Institution that offers a community radio station, a newspaper, a commercial kitchen, an Aquaba Hall rental space, and community office for our organizers. That was the building that has come under attack.
You need a breach? What do you need?
Need one.
I don't know.
What's whole betterment money?
All of it.
Thank you.
We will build a movement of white people that says hands off the Uhuru movement.
They see in the African People's Socialist Party a vanguard for the struggle for the liberation of our people. They see that because not just what we do here in the United States, but because we had the temerity to do like Garvey, to do like Malcolm X, and take the struggle of black people around the world.
Uhuru, Uhuru. Greetings, greetings, welcome, welcome to everyone, to all of you that have joined us on tonight for this incredible, important webinar. My name is Belinda Parker Brown. I'm the president and CEO of Louisiana United International. I'm also a member of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparation, as well as a member of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee. And I am so excited to be co-chairing with you all tonight, along with my committee member, Zoe. Take it away, Zoe.
Uhuru, thank you, Belinda. My name is Zoe Hauser, and I am also a proud member of the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee, as well as a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which works under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party to build reparations to the African community. And I just want to say what an honor it has been to be part of this brilliant and historic counteroffensive being waged by the African People's Socialist Party. We want to begin by thanking the panelists who participated tonight or who will be participating, and everyone who is on the webinar for joining us tonight for this important event. The political prosecution of the Uhuru 3, the First Amendment on trial.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Zoe, so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I just want to say there is a scripture in the Bible. If you have ears to hear, you need to hear. If you have eyes to see, I hope that you just witness that video that we just showed you. You know, it's, if it ever been a time for you to see and hear what this case is really all about, now is that time. You know, we are now just less than 2 weeks away from the most important free speech trial of our time. This is so serious, people. It is so serious. You know, I want you to know that in which the United States government will attempt, you know, they are attempting to put Chairman Omali Yeshitela and our chairman that have been around for over 50 years, Penny Hess and Jesse Nevels, known as the Uhuru 3, on trial for these bogus charges of being foreign agents. But as we know, this case is simply, you know, it's simple. It's very simple. The United States government used the law as a cover for a political attack on Black people and our struggle for freedom. That's what we will expose here in this event. We're going to make it very plain and clear that this is an attack on all of us here in the United States of America. This is an attack to stop us from being able to speak, to silence our voices when we are standing for what's right and speaking the truth to power. You know, Black people, you know, our struggle for freedom has, you know, this have been going on forever. And you know that if we do not speak out, you know, silence is detrimental to us. So they're trying to silence us. And this is a case that everybody, if you have not already shared this webinar, I want you to start sharing now. Start sharing with your neighbors, your friends, your family, everybody you know, especially your coworkers. You know, start sharing, people. You know, our goal is to mobilize everyone here to come. Everyone to come to St. Petersburg, Florida for the major mobilization on August 31st and attend the trial in Tampa, Florida, starting on September the 3rd. You can go to the handsoffyahuru.org/trial, handsoffyahuru.org/trial to sign up right now. You can start registering. Okay. Zoe.
Fantastic. Yes, Uhuru. Yeah, we really want to pack that courtroom. So we want to, again, just reiterate that call to get your ticket, come to Florida. The mobilization starts on August 31st and the trial starts September 3rd. Before we get started, again, we want to thank all of our fantastic panelists, as well as the organizations that have worked so hard to build tonight's event. First of all, we want to salute our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, the leader of the Uhuru movement, and Mwezi Odom, the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. And we also salute the National Lawyers Guild, including the NLG Mass Incarceration Committee, Project South, Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Defense Committee, Louisiana United International, Civil Liberties Defense Center, City University, New York for Palestine, and everyone else who helped get the word out about tonight's event.
Okay, Zoe, why don't you go ahead and take the next one? And lost my
Sure.
screen.
Yeah, no worries. We also wanted to give a special shout out to the National Lawyers Guild of Chicago.
Yes.
Who just this past week is really exciting. They filed a motion to submit an amicus brief in support of the Uhuru 3. So that was a tremendous victory. So we really want to just share a huge shout out in Uhuru to the National Lawyers Guild of Chicago. And with that, we're going to get started with our panel. We have some amazing speakers lined up. So to get us started, we're going to hear a brief overview about the case of the Uhuru 3 by Jesse Nevels, who again is the chair of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the national chair. He joined the movement in 2010 and has worked ever since to build white solidarity with Black power. He is a powerful force that I am always humbled and honored to work with. He works under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, and he is one of the indicted Uhuru 3. So again, please welcome Jesse Neville.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru.
Hands off.
All right. Thank you so much to Comrade Zoe and Comrade Belinda. I'm very excited and honored to be a part of this webinar tonight. Excuse me, hosted by the Hands Off Uhuru Legal Defense Support Committee. And I think that we are going to pull up some slides in just a moment. All right. So I want to start by saluting Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who is the leader of the Uhuru movement, the primary target of this bogus political prosecution, this legal lynching that is set to begin on September 3rd in Tampa, Florida. And, you know, the leader of the African Revolution, under whose leadership I've had the honor to work as a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee since 2010. So salute to Chairman Omali Yeshitela, salute to Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela, and all of the leaders of the African People's Socialist Party. And I also want to salute Chairwoman Penny Hess, who we'll be hearing from a little bit later tonight, who is also one of the Uhuru 3, who has worked under the party's leadership to build principled white solidarity with African liberation since 1976. And also extend a salute to Mwezi Odom, the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition. And thank you again to Belinda, to Louisiana United International, to Zoe Hauser, to the attorneys for the Uhuru 3, Leonard Goodman, Addie Griffin, Mutaki Akbar, Angela Rainey, and Tom Inskeep. You'll be hearing from some of them in just a moment. Also, thank you to our other panelists tonight, the incredible revolutionary scholar and professor, Natsu Taylor Saito, who will be talking to us a little bit later, who's been a profound supporter of the Hands Off Uhuru campaign, and also Lauren Reagan of the Civil Liberties Defense Center, also an incredible attorney who has been a pivotal part of this fight back since day one, since immediately after the FBI raids on the Uhuru movement on July 29th of 2022. And I also want to thank Jennifer Jones, the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Defense Committee, and join in giving a shout out to the National Lawyers Guild, specifically the Chicago chapter that just filed an amicus brief in support of the Uhuru 3 in the federal court. Along with Chairwoman Penny Hess and Chairman Omali Yeshitela, I am, as has been stated, one of the Uhuru 3. In just a couple of weeks, we will go to trial in the federal court in Tampa, Florida, facing bogus charges of being foreign agents with the possibility of up to 15 years in federal prison. I will talk to you now about this bogus trial, why it is so important to all who believe in free speech, and what you can do to join the fight back. The case of the Uhuru 3 is increasingly widely recognized as the most serious political assault, one, on the African liberation movement since the 1960s, and two, on the very right to exercise freedom of speech. This is a test case. If the US government were hypothetically to succeed in railroading the Uhuru 3 into a guilty verdict, it would open the gates for the United States government to criminally charge anyone for a crime for words that they don't like, simply by saying that you expressed your words on behalf of a so-called foreign government, simply on the basis that some of your words might share the same views or express the same views as that of a so-called foreign government. When the US government indicted Chairman Omali Yeshitela on April 18th of 2023, they published a press release along with their indictment. And in that press release, they stated that the Uhuru movement and Chairman Omali Yeshitela had weaponized freedom of speech, had weaponized the First Amendment. The chairman has called on us to look closely at the history of the First Amendment and the US Constitution of the United States. A US Constitution that was created and then amended with the Bill of Rights, which were ratified in 1791 when African people were enslaved on plantations in this country. A First Amendment created by one group of white settlers seeking to free themselves from another group from the tyranny of another group of white settlers. As the chairman has stated explicitly, the First Amendment was never meant for Black people. But as the chairman tells us, white people have to understand that when they take the First Amendment rights away from African people who have fought and died for every inch of democratic space that they have forced to be opened up to them in this country, they are making an assault not on Chairman Omali Yeshitela's First Amendment, but on your First Amendment, on everybody's First Amendment right to freedom of speech. They're using the attack on the chairman as the vehicle through which to dismantle any pretense of freedom of speech whatsoever. So as you saw in that video that we showed earlier in the program, on July 29th of 2022, the US government made their latest assault on the African liberation movement public with the highly militarized FBI SWAT team raids on 7 homes and offices of the Uhuru movement in St. Petersburg, Florida, and St. Louis, Missouri, including the home of Chairman Omali and Deputy Chair Omali Yeshitela, who were held at gunpoint and handcuffed in front of their home. On that day, July 29th of 2022, the United States government indicted a Russian national who lives in Russia, and included in that indictment 4 so-called unindicted co-conspirators, which included Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who was called unindicted co-conspirator number 1, and Penny Hess, myself, and Akile Anai, who is the leader of the Department of Media and Communications and the editor of the Burning Spear newspaper for the African People's Socialist Party. 9 months passed with no further obvious and direct legal action by the United States government against those of us who had been targeted in those raids. But during this time, a myriad of other assaults were made against the African People's Socialist Party, including in the form of economic warfare, in the form of banks colluding with the United States government and the FBI to close down accounts and cancel lines of credit and mortgages that had been opened by and maintained by the Uhuru movement for decades. Finally, on April 18th of last year, 9 months after the raids, the Department of Justice, the so-called Department of Justice, through a federal grand jury in Tampa, Florida, unsealed a superseding indictment, which now charged Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, and myself of criminal involvement in a so-called Russian conspiracy to sow discord in the United States. The chairman and Penny and myself were arraigned in the federal court in Tampa, Florida in May of last year, released on a $25,000 signature bond and subject to pretrial conditions that included the revoking of our passport and restricted travel, among other things. We were charged with 2 federal felony statutes, violations of 2 federal felony statutes. The first being something called 18 USC section 951, which is often confused with a similar law called the Foreign Agent Registration Act, but which is instead called the Agents of Foreign Governments Act, and which charges the chairman and the Uhuru 3 of functioning, of operating as secret illegal foreign agents of Russia, of a foreign government, in this case of Russia, without notifying the Attorney General's office. The United States Department of Justice has even referred to this law as espionage light, implying that it is essentially a law that they use to go after people that they accuse of being spies. The second crime they accuse the Uhuru movement of committing is conspiracy to commit an offense against or defraud the United States government. These 2 federal felony violations carry, if convicted, a maximum penalty of 15 years in federal prison. These charges are untrue and preposterous, but more than that, they are an insult to more than 60 years of struggle by Chairman Omali Yeshitela alone for the liberation of Africa and African people worldwide. They are based on the insulting and racist premise that African people in this country would need Russian influence or intervention to know that they are oppressed, to know that they have a right to fight for their liberation. It can't be said better than the way the chairman said it on the steps of his home on July 29th, when he said there were no Russians present when Mike Brown was killed, when George Floyd was killed, when Sandra Bland was killed, that it wasn't Russia that brought the chairman and millions of other African people into the struggle for their freedom. It was America. It was oppression under this social system for the last several hundred years. And more than that, it is an attempt to liquidate the entire history of the struggle by African people for their liberation by reducing it to some absurd manufactured so-called Russian plot to sow discord in the United States and undermine so-called US democracy. As the chairman has said, the Uhuru Three are not guilty of these bogus charges. On the other hand, there is endless evidence of the fact that the United States and the FBI are guilty of carrying out these types of attacks over and over and over again, anytime African people attempt to fight for their liberation and independence. They are guilty of harassing, infiltrating, and stalking and terrorizing and assassinating countless African and indigenous freedom fighters, only few among them including Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, so many others, going back to the 1920s when the FBI cut its teeth working to undermine and destroy the movement of Marcus Garvey at that time. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up because one of our panelists, Leonard Goodman, can only be on for a short time, and I definitely want to make sure he has time to speak. So just to close out this presentation, I want to say that as Attorney Goodman can talk to you about also, all of the so-called overt acts in this fake conspiracy that the indictment alleges are pure political speech. Publishing articles, waging campaigns for reparations, petitioning the United Nations to charge the US government with the crime of genocide against African people. All of this is speech consistent with more than 50 years of history by the African People's Socialist Party in pursuit of the liberation and self-determination of Africa and African people. And as Leonard Goodman and the motion for dismissal that he filed, and which was ultimately denied ridiculously by the court, he brilliantly argued that this is the first time that this particular law has been used to target pure political speech. So I want to skip ahead a few slides. I'm going to go to slide 19 for our tech forces. Thank you so much. And I want to close by saying that a jury trial in federal court is set for September 3rd of this year. And I will end by saying that the intolerance for any speech that challenges the colonial state shows not strength, but weakness and desperation. Under the bold and courageous leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the support of thousands of friends and allies like all of you who are participating in this meeting today, we know we will win. We know we are winning. A massive mobilization of the people fighting back can and will defeat this desperate attack on the African liberation movement and on free speech itself. So the chairman has said, this ultimately isn't about the law. They are using the law as an instrument through which to wage a political assault on the African liberation movement and on everybody who believes in freedom of speech and political expression. And therefore they must be met with a political response. So we invite everyone in this meeting to join us in St. Petersburg, Florida on August 31st to demand the US government drop the bogus charges against Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Three, and then join us on September 3rd in Tampa. Pack the courts and pack the streets. The real jury is the people. The real verdict will be won in the streets. Drop the charges on the Uhuru Three, hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela, free Leonard Peltier, free Palestine, down with colonialism, Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru. Jesse.
I'll turn it back over to our amazing MCs.
Go ahead, Zoe.
Uhuru. Uhuru, thank you, Jesse, for laying out the basics of the case, and we really appreciate Jesse's steadfast commitment to building the Uhuru Solidarity movement, and especially in the face of these charges, to continuing to fight for this organization and his involvement in this, and this counteroffensive. We would just like to say, just one moment. We want to introduce Attorney Goodman.
Leonard Goodman, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just lost. Yes. Belinda. Yes, and I just want to say, Red Scare tactics are not new. We know that. We know Red Scare tactics are not new. And we really, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find my, and we know that this is something that we want to defend the African People's Socialist Party. We must defend the African People's Socialist Party, not just to defend the First Amendment, but also because these are incredible, this is an incredible time to recognize that voice has to be heard. We must hear the voice of the most oppressed community. Belinda, I have lost my script for a moment. Would you mind introducing Attorney Leonard Goodman? Thank you.
Yes, Leonard Goodman is the attorney that's representing Penny Hess, one of the Uhuru Three. Goodman is a distinguished criminal law attorney based in Chicago who has won high-profile and precedent-setting cases, including the United States Supreme Court and the Illinois Supreme Court. He is a prolific publisher, columnist, covering legal and social justice topics, and teach federal criminal law at the DePaul University. Wow. Go right ahead. We are beyond grateful to have Mr. Leonard Goodman on the legal team defending the Uhuru Three. Please welcome Attorney Goodman. Attorney Goodman, if you're with us, open up your mic and come on in. You're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Well, thank you so much. And, it's an honor to represent Penny Hess and the Uhuru Three, and to get to know all of you and the fight and the struggle that you've been waging for so many years. And it's humbling. I'm here in Chicago, and I'm sorry that I can't stay on very long. I'm trying to get done all the things I need to do so that I can spend a month in Tampa fighting this case. I'm actually here with my 9-year-old daughter and her mom right now. And she knows all about the case and is very, very confident that we're going to win. What I want to say is that, in preparing for this case, it's almost a surreal experience because we're listening, the lawyers, we're listening to speech after speech of Omali Yeshitela that the government is going to play to a jury. And it almost seems like a different country. This is a criminal case, and the government is going to play political speeches, dissenting speeches that criticize our government, and ask a jury to convict. I've never seen anything like it. It's shocking. We have to win. We will win. We have a great legal team. I want to thank everyone for having me and for all your friendship and all your support. We'll see you in.
We lost you.
Hello?
Yes, I'm sorry, Attorney Goodman, we lost you for just a moment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. No, I just wanted to say thanks everyone for their support, and we will see you in Tampa.
Wow, thank you so much, Attorney Goodman. Zoe, do you wanna have anything to say? But we just really thank you from the bottom of our heart. We're so grateful to have you as an attorney on this case, because one of the things that you said that this is not a it's not a political case. You know, it's obvious that that the legal system is weaponizing the individuals. They're using our legal system to weaponize, all of the individuals in this case. Like you said, it is incredible, unbelievable what extremes they would go to when it comes to Black people in the 21st century that are standing and fighting for their liberation. Just thank you again, Attorney Goodman. Thank you so much. So, Zoe, did you have anything you want to say? If not, we can go ahead.
We're going to move. I just really appreciate, again, this case, as we've said so many times, is not about the law. It's a political case, and it's really required that special legal team to tackle that challenge. So we really appreciate the legal team that has been wrangling with these challenges. We are going to win. It's incredible. So we really want to thank Attorney Goodman. We are next going to hear from Angela Rainey. She is a criminal defense attorney in Illinois. She formerly clerked in the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals and the Southern District of Illinois. Angela is a powerful member of the Uhuru 3 team. So we want to welcome and thank you very much for joining us, Angela Rainey, Attorney Rainey.
Thank you very much. I agree with everything that Lynn said about the case. This is a huge First Amendment case that's going to have implications, far beyond the chairman and Penny and Jesse. It's going to impact, activists, journalists, anyone that, enjoys exercising their First Amendment rights. So I do appreciate everyone's support. I'm honored to be on the team. It's been a great experience, just going through and watching the party's activities, getting to watch chairman's speeches has been a great learning experience for me. Everyone's support is essential to what's going on here. So I just want to say thank you. And it's really been an honor to be on the team.
Thank you, Attorney Rainey. And if you haven't yet read Attorney Goodman and Rainey's motion to dismiss, it's posted on the Hands Off Uhuru website. It's an incredible document that lays out the history of the party and underscores the political nature of this U.S. government attack. So thank you very much, Attorney Rainey, for being here with us tonight. We also wanted to give a general thank you and shout out to the entire Uhuru 3 legal team, attorneys Akbar, Goodman, and Rainey, for defending the African community's right to organize in its own interest and to defend their right to raise critique. Again, this is such an incredible issue, and if the US government is saying that Russia weaponized the First Amendment through us, what does that say about this country, that you can't even critique and express a critique of foreign and US domestic policies without being pulled under that umbrella of being a weapon? So it's a pretty powerful, this is such a powerful case. I will turn it back to Belinda.
Absolutely, Zoe. You are so true. The sad thing about this is that we know that the plan, whenever there is something going on, we realize that they have a plan, and our government have a plan and a plot against us. And what's happening is that we want to make it clear, as you listen to the attorneys, as you listen to, what we're saying, to make it clear to you that this is an all-out attack against all of us, to stop us from speaking, to silence us. So with that said, I now want to introduce our next attorney, Attorney Akbar. And okay, let's see. Okay, we're so honored to hear from you, Attorney Akbar. Open up your mic at an event held, Attorney Akbar, okay, at an event held 2 years after the FBI raid, Attorney Akbar, a criminal defense trial attorney representing Jesse Nevels, one of the Uhuru Three, which we heard from earlier, who was indicted on April the 18th, 2023. Akbar graduated cum
laude from University of Miami.
Cum laude from the University of Miami Schools of Law, and is a managing partner at Akbar Thomas Law Firm in Tallahassee, Florida. He is also the current president of the NAACP at Tallahassee chapter. Okay, so I'm having a difficult time trying to read this, Zoe, but come on, Attorney Akbar, open up your mic and join us. We can't wait to hear from you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I want to send, my regards to the chairman, to Jesse, to Penny, to everybody who's a part of this. And, I think we even would be remiss or in the room and listening in to this rally. And I think what's important about what's going on right now, first of all, like your support for the Uhuru Three, your support for the last 2 years has been very essential for all of us, not just Jesse, Penny, and Chairman Omali, but also for us as the attorneys to understand that we have the support of the people as we prepare to take on the United States government. Right now, where we are in the case, it's going to trial. It's going to be a trial. And this trial is an attack on the freedom of speech. And it's also an attack on self-determination and the ability for us to be responsible for ourselves. I've said it from the very beginning that once I visited St. Louis, once I came down to St. Petersburg, once I got engulfed in the culture of the organization, to really see the things that they've been doing as far as, caring for the community, having a basketball court, having a community garden, training women to be doulas, taking care of those people who are formerly incarcerated, all of those things that we are taking on with the goal of self-determination are reasons why the government would say we need to do something about this. And in doing something about this, we need to figure out how to, not only halt the work, but also halt the speech. And as a result, try to halt the movement. And what this fight back has been all about is saying that, number one, you can't halt the movement. That's number one. Number two, you're not going to halt the speech because we're not going to sit down or lay down or be quiet. And number three, the work that needs to be done, the people see that it needs to be done. So you have, from all the way on the right to Tucker Carlson to all the way on the left, people standing up and saying that you cannot attack the freedom of speech. And to take the route or to take the objective of saying that, the Russian government is responsible for these ideas, that the Russian government is responsible for the movement that charged the United States with genocide. When all of this was going on, it was in the midst of genocide taking place in communities from St. Louis to New Orleans, to Texas, to all over this country. We saw genocide. We saw the government being behind this genocide against Black people. And to say that the Russian government is responsible for us to speak out against us is a slap in the face. And so we're prepared as the attorneys to stand up and say that this is our movement, that this is what we stand for, and you cannot shut it down or shut us down when it comes down to freedom of speech. So it's going to be a month-long trial that we believe that they're going to try to, kind of come from every single angle. They'll take things out of context to say that we're under the direction and control of the Russian government. They're going to take things out of context to say that, we're taking ideas from Russians, but we're going to put it back in context to show that the context is for the last 70 years, Chairman Omali and the African Socialist Party has been doing this work and has doing this work for the freedom of black people and freedom of African people. And this trial is not going to stop it. So we look forward to this fight. We're prepared for this fight. We'll continue to prepare for this fight. And we need the support of the community. So if you can show up on the 31st, and if you can show up even throughout the trial, take shifts, take turns, come sit in. You know, some people get a week, other people get another week. But it would make sense, and it's helpful for a jury to look back and see a diverse group of people that stands for the African People's Socialist Party. So I stand with you as out taking my hat off as an attorney. I stand with this organization, and I will continue to stand with this organization even after this trial is over with. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Attorney Akbar, for that. Just phenomenal, profound, fight that, I can just feel the energy coming from you, that's the fight, because the African People's Socialist Party have always been determined, and love to be able to stand and fight for our people. So next, we're going to keep it moving. Next, we're going to have Lauren Reagan. Lauren Reagan is, I'm giving you her, wow. Hi, Lauren, how you doing? If you're with us, go ahead and open up your mic. Lauren Reagan is the founder, director, and the senior staff attorney at the Civil Liberties Defense Center, and has specialized in civil rights, activist criminal defense, and environmental, climate, and animals rights laws for over 2 decades. Lauren and the Civil Liberties Defense Center have been profound supporters of the Uhuru Hands Off Uhuru. All right, Hands Off the Uhuru campaign from day one, assisting immediately after the FBI raid on the Uhuru movement in 2022. Please welcome Lauren. Open up your mic and come on in, Lauren.
Thank you. So yeah, for 27 years, I've been defending political activists around the country. And I think maybe what I could add to this conversation that hasn't already been said is every time the US government engages in a prosecution, it is often based on political reasons. But in my experience, this particular jurisdiction, the US District for Florida, for Tampa, Florida, has been particularly obvious in colluding with politicians to prosecute cases. We're supposed to have 3 branches of government. They're supposed to be distinct, and the legal system, allegedly is supposed to be free from political bias, and the intentions of prosecutions are supposed to be on community health and safety types of issues, and justice. But in this case, it's very clear that the US government had a goal, and it is basically using the APSP and these 3 folks as targets, as poster children, if you will, for the prosecution. And so I thought it would be interesting to look at a few other cases that have happened in recent years where that statute that Jesse mentioned, 18 USC 951, this agents of foreign government statute. First of all, that statute, and when they use that phrase, agents of foreign governments within the US, basically what the definition of that is that the individuals are subject to direction and control of a foreign actor, a foreign principal. And so in essence, the government is stating that the chairman and others are under the direction and control of the Russian government, that their campaign that has gone on for decades regarding the issues for Black liberation, for restitution and other issues like that came at the direction and control of the Russian government, which is just kind of racist and, intended, I think, to be really derogatory. But when you look at some of the other cases using that statute, in 2022, Tom Barak was acquitted by a jury. You might remember this guy. He was the former Trump campaign advisor, and he was accused of advocating for the United Arab Emirates in basically providing government officials there with information and advice relating to their relationship to the US. There were 2 other cases where a cop and a corporate social media employee were accused for giving information to China and Saudi Arabia about US-based individuals that were dissidents to those countries, like literally giving up the names and locations of humans within the US that those governments wanted to go capture and take back to their country. And then, of course, in 2018, Trump pardoned Paul Manafort, who pled guilty at one point to doing pro-Russia representation against Ukrainian officials. And so it's really clear that Russia, China, and the Gulf states get most of the prosecutorial resources where we see cases like this, but every prosecution is a choice. And my understanding is there are no Russian individuals that have actually been indicted, arraigned, and prosecuted in this case. And so instead, really what this is about is trying to chill people, whether they are US citizens or not, from speaking in a way that's contrary to the US government company line. Instead of being allowed to give contrary positions regarding wars, in this case, it's likely that the APSP were targeted because they were not in lockstep with the US government's position on the war in Ukraine. And instead were, advocating a position that was contrary to that and, basically calling the US imperialists. That is what likely got them on the map. And so I think for political activists out there that are looking at this case and wondering, like, what is the significance or what can we learn from it? I think one of the things that happens time and time again is you can do everything you can to try to cross your T's and dot your I's and, be, political activists, political movements that try to stay away from the government and prosecution. But when the government decides to target you and go after you, they have a lot of resources at their disposal. And those resources include surveillance, infiltration, raids, the use of force, incarceration, shutting, housing and healthcare and your economic needs being challenged, as we heard. It's a tremendous punch in the face when the government decides to come for you. But I think, as was the case in the 1950s during the Red Scare, when anti-Russian sentiment was also in a hysterical state, history repeats itself. And we are seeing that same level of hysteria now being wielded against these individuals. And as occurred then, it is time, and it is a moment where people of conscience and people who really stand up for the diversity of political opinions in this country stand in solidarity for those that are being targeted. Because although they are the targets today, we do not know whether we will be the targets tomorrow. And so, standing up and fighting and resisting, showing solidarity, these are all ways that we can let the government know that an attack like this, an attack on one is an attack on all, and our political movements can withstand that as we have done for decades and decades. Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much, Lauren. That was so profound. And I hope, one of the things that's so important, if you listen what she had to say, don't let it go in one ear and out the other. And if you haven't already shared this webinar, start sharing, not just today, but every single day up until the day of the trials, throughout the trial. This is so critical. And what she's saying, I just want to add to that, we cannot allow this to happen on our watch, people. We cannot allow it. We will not tolerate it. The government is the enemy. The FBI, they are the enemy. And they're using the criminal justice system to weaponize, to get their way, to penalize, to do everything they possibly can, because she said when they come for you, they have all kinds of resources. They have everything, in a blatant disregard and a misuse of taxpayers' money on a bogus charge like this. Okay, we cannot tolerate this. So with that said, you got my blood to boiling, Lauren, because, the real truth is, if they coming for the Uhuru 3, you better believe they're coming for all of us. And that's the reason why we cannot allow this to happen on our watch. So Zoe, you can take it from there, Zoe, for our next speaker.
Uhuru. Yes, Uhuru. So I really want to appreciate Reagan as well. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Really want to appreciate that summation from Lauren, Reagan. And again, it is a really critical juncture in history where we do have to stand so that we can push these attacks back. And they have, as so many of us have said, the government has tried to quash this voice, but what's happening is the reverse. This organization is building and becoming stronger. We want to next invite, and thank you again, Lauren. Next, we'll hear from Natsu Taylor Saito, who is an activist attorney and a Regents Professor Emerita at Georgia State University, where she taught courses on race and human rights for almost 30 years. She's the author of 3 books, most recently Settler Colonialism, Race, and the Law: Why Structural Racism Persists, from NYU Press 2020. A former community organizer, Natsu remains involved in efforts to defend Indigenous rights, contest police misconduct, and protect academic freedom. So please welcome Natsu Saito Taylor.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be part of this panel. And I also wanted to add my thanks to the lawyers who are doing this incredible work. I've been asked to talk a little bit about the historical context of this case and the ways in which such prosecutions have been brought. So I'm going to do my best to summarize what I think are some of the high points in the next 5 minutes or so. I'm talking to you from Atlanta, where I'm on the traditional territory of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and it's land where Creeks, Cherokees, and many other peoples were subjected to genocidal violence and removal. And it's land that was made profitable by the enslavement of Native and African peoples, as well as the ongoing exploitation of a wide range of migrants and refugees. And I bring that up because I always think it's important to pay attention to where we are. But it's also important, if we're going to have grounded conversations and to develop meaningful political strategies, to be aware of the history and the spirits of the land that we're on. And I also think that it's really especially relevant to what's happening in this case. And that's because Jesse Neville, Penny Hess, and Chairman Omali Yeshitela are being prosecuted not because they've broken any federal laws, and certainly not because they're pawns of the Russians, but because they work tirelessly to empower communities at a grassroots level and to tell the truth as they see it. They recognize that the United States is a settler colonial power, and they insist, in accordance with international law, that self-determination is essential to the realization of all human rights. So if we put this, if we look back with this framework, we can remember, and I think we know, even though often our history isn't taught in these terms, that the earliest Anglo-American colonizers came to stay, right? They could not envision any form of shared governance, and instead they were determined to wipe out what was here already and establish a state over which they exerted total control. And to this day, they claim legitimacy based on raw power, not law. In 1823, the Supreme Court's Chief Justice, John Marshall, said in a case about indigenous land rights, conquest gives a title to which the courts of the conqueror cannot deny. And that's what we're dealing with here, right? We're dealing with the courts of the conqueror. This was okay, according to the court, in 1823, because the people whose rights have been wrested from them, so acknowledging, right, that their rights were taken, were wandering hordes held together only by ties of blood and habit, having neither laws or government beyond what's required in a savage state. In other words, racial subordination justified stealing the land and, of course, the labor that made the occupation profitable. As Justice Taney said in Dred Scott, the founders envisioned no rights for people of African descent. Americans were to be white, as Congress made perfectly clear in the 1790 Naturalization Act, which limited naturalized citizenship to, quote, free white persons. And this is a provision that was not completely taken out of the law until 1952. So the problem here, in sort of a big sense, is that there's no there, right? As Cherokee artist Jimmy Durham said, the United States is built on the denial of its original inhabitants. It's only a political entity, and its ideology is its culture. And this is why belief in a shared national identity that's often shorthanded as American values becomes sacrosanct. Stephen Salaita calls this imperative patriotism, where to dissent from the imagined mores of America is to forfeit identification as American. So those who are perceived as un-American aren't seen as deserving of legal or constitutional protections. I mean, if you just think about a couple of small examples, we didn't hear very much about the First Amendment rights of Colin Kaepernick or John Carlos and Tommy Smith at the Olympics or Muhammad Ali, right? They were deemed un-American. And so all of a sudden, the statements they were making were not First Amendment protected. They were un-American, and therefore they could be attacked. And those who don't have legal protection, of course, quickly become targets of state violence. So this prosecution right now of the Uhuru Three is part of a long history in which those who challenge the settler colonial occupation or the racial hierarchy on which it depends are constructed as enemies of the state. A consistent theme in the suppression of political dissent is that those who disagree with government policy are labeled un-American and then accused of acting on behalf of foreign powers. We can go all the way back to the 1798 Alien and Sedition Acts, which the Federalists who put them in place claimed were necessary because the Jeffersonians, they said, were agents of France trying to bring the French Revolution's reign of terror to the United States. Since then, the government has often attacked labor organizers, political activists, pretty much anybody who is attacking or challenging the status quo by claiming that they promoted anarchism or communism or some other version of alien ideologies. In 1918, during World War I, we saw the Espionage Act criminalizing disloyal or abusive language about the United States, and the Sedition Act prohibited almost any criticism of the war or the government. And in that era, about 1,000 people were convicted for speech-related so-called crimes, but none for actual actions that were, espionage or sedition. The Alien Registration or Smith Act of 1940 extended the prohibitions on speech that were found in earlier sedition laws to peacetime, right? Before they were justified on the basis of, well, we're at war, so, we have to take extreme measures. But they were now extended to peacetime. And in the meantime, by the 30s, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI was targeting subversion, as he called it, around the country, prompted by a congressional investigation into so-called un-American activities. The Foreign Agents Registration Act, or FARA, was passed in 1938, allegedly to protect Americans from foreign propaganda. And then later in 1948, we got the version that we see in Section 951, which is at issue in this case. Some of the best known targets of these laws were W.E.B. Du Bois and the Peace Information Center, which was charged, well, all of them were charged in 1951 with acting as Russian agents because they were broadcasting global appeals to ban nuclear weapons. So we see very much of a parallel, right? So all of this whole sort of history of these attempts to use the legal system in this way, and much more, of course, set the stage for COINTELPRO, which was described by the Senate Select Committee as a sophisticated vigilante operation aimed squarely at preventing the exercise of First Amendment rights of speech and association on the theory that preventing the growth of dangerous groups and the propagation of dangerous ideas would protect the national security and deter violence. So this was a conclusion reached by the Senate Select Committee, the Church Committee. And as we know, a common COINTELPRO tactic was to bring false charges, knowing that they might not stand up in court, but in the meantime, the work of the targeted individuals or organizations would be derailed. And so these foreign agent or agents of foreign powers laws are just some of the tools that are used to accomplish this purpose. And these types of prosecutions were fairly dormant from about the mid-60s until 2015, for about 50 years. But since then, we've seen, as Lauren shared with us, a whole raft of prosecutions that have been used in a highly politicized manner. So what we're seeing here with the Uhuru 3 is just another iteration of the case that was brought against Du Bois. And it's imperative that we contest it, as all of the other speakers have said. It threatens the life, the liberty, and the work of the Uhuru 3 and their movement. But beyond that, it's setting an incredibly dangerous precedent. If we let this happen, as all the other speakers have said, right, any of us who challenge the government can be deemed agents of foreign powers, and on that basis denied the constitutional protections we rely on to think freely, to express our opinions, and to work for a better world. The settler state is intent on maintaining a colonial occupation. With this prosecution, I really see it as checking to see just how much repression we'll tolerate. And the longer we wait to respond, the harder it's going to be. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much,
Uhuru.
Uhuru. Zoe, you wanna go ahead? Wow, that
Yeah.
was. I just want to say she's absolutely right. This would be the greatest catastrophe that we would ever experience in our history if we take too long to respond. So we see that there are quite a few people responding here tonight. We really appreciate and welcome everyone for joining us. But go ahead, Zoe.
Yeah, no, I just really want to appreciate that presentation from Attorney Sayuto Taylor, and the whole analysis of those historically in this country who have expressed dissent, not deserving of legal protection, is so in line with the chairman's analysis that the First Amendment and free speech is never applied to African people, because this whole country is a white nationalist state, and that was its very foundation. So we do want to really appreciate that analysis, because once again, the U.S. is waging this counterinsurgency attack on the Black movement, just as it did in the 20s against the UNIA and Marcus Garvey, and just as it did in the 60s against the Black Panther Party. So we recognize the historical continuum here and really appreciate that more further in-depth analysis. So thank you so much. And Attorney Sayuto Taylor, thank you for all the solidarity and all the support in this historic counteroffensive. We were honored to have Attorney Jennifer Jones, lead counsel for Leonard Peltier, be with us tonight. We were very honored to have her. She is unfortunately, due to some urgent work that is happening around the struggle to free Leonard Peltier, Attorney Jones was not able to join us tonight. But she did send us a following statement, which Belinda is going to read for us. But I wanted to just also say that the Uhuru movement has always had fraternal ties with indigenous organizations such as Unión del Barrio in San Diego, California, and the Leonard Peltier Defense Campaign, the now official ad hoc committee. And we stand in solidarity with the anti-colonial campaign to free Leonard Peltier. I also want to just say how much the Legal Defense Support Committee appreciates Attorney Jones's support and assistance and guidance, because she stepped in to quite a few of our meetings, and we really appreciate her. So I'll go ahead and allow Belinda to read Jennifer's statement.
Zoe, can you go ahead on and read it? I'm having a difficult time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I gotcha. Okay. So this is the statement from Attorney Jones. She says, greetings to Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairperson Odom, Hess, and Neville. Thank you for inviting me to this convening discussion. Discussion about the legal and social implications of the prosecution of the Uhuru 3. I apologize that I could not be here with you today, but urgent legal movement matters have taken me away from this particular convening. I will see you on September 3rd. The Leonard Peltier legal team and official ad hoc committee send our solidarity, support, greetings, and love. We know that with every political indictment, political prosecution, unfair trial, disproportionately long sentences, neglect of medical care, and denials of release from prison, that the colonial system is ringing its own death knell by undermining its own so-called principles, rendering them transparently hollow, meaningless, and rotten, only but for the few it intended to include in the first place. In this and other ways, the Uhuru 3, Leonard Peltier, Mumia Abu-Jamal, and so many others are already victorious. There is not so much to say about the First Amendment. As a legal practitioner, I know, like every one of my colleagues today, that it was never, ever intended for marginalized folks in the United States. It has been that way since Gloucester's Rebellion, and has been that way ever since, and will continue to be that way without our disruption. You cannot have a legal system which one had an entire code, black codes, or black laws, and expect that system to just to those very same people with a stroke of pen without the eradication of that system entirely. Yet there is a victory, more victory to come. The Uhuru 3 will walk out of the United States District for the Middle District of Florida as free people, and together we will march in freedom, for freedom, hand in hand with Leonard, with Mumia, and build a nation bound in common brotherhood and the power of love and unity, which has yet to fail. Again, we wish our colleague, the Uhuru 3 legal team, well. We stand with the Uhuru 3 and will continue to do so until freedom is entirely theirs. Free Leonard, free Mumia, Uhuru. Thank you.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we appreciate those powerful words from Attorney Jones, Jennifer Jones. And also, we appreciate the support and her guidance she has provided for the Legal Defense Support Committee in this whole matter. She has been have given us phenomenal support. Now it is my honor to introduce Penny Hess. Is the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people. Wow, that feels so good for me to say, because I have a deep love for you, Penny. I have a deep-rooted love for you, because when I can say that the organization of white people under the direction and the leadership of the African Socialist Party, working for reparation to the African people. Penny Hess has been a member of the African Socialist, the African People's Socialist Committee since its founding. by the party in 1976. Wow. Penny is the author of the book, Overturning the Culture of Violence. She is one of the Uhuru Three. Welcome, Penny. Welcome, welcome.
Oh,
Uhuru. Uhuru, I love you, my sister. You are awesome. You are just a breath of fresh air. And I am so excited for you to even be here with us tonight with your busy schedule. So go right ahead, Penny. Take it away.
Uhuru, thank you so much. I'm very honored by your introduction, Belinda Parker Brown, and just really salute you and just the incredible leader that you are. It's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to be here. And I want to salute all of the more than 100 people who are on tonight, who are standing with Chairman Omali Yeshitela and standing with the Uhuru Three. Many new names who I don't know, I don't recognize. I salute all of you who are on tonight. This is the last webinar of Hands Off Uhuru before the trial, which begins on September 3rd, and before the August 31st rally that's going to be here in St. Petersburg, Florida. Everybody's got to be there. Get your tickets, get in your car, come here, be here August 31st and September 3rd. I want to salute the lawyers and the incredible attorneys and my specific attorney, Attorney Goodman, but they work as a team. Mutaki Akbar, Addie Griffin, and Leonard Goodman, Angela Rainey and Tom Inskeep, just an amazing, amazing, powerful legal team that we have. I salute Jennifer Jones, by the way, and the whole struggle to free Leonard Peltier. I salute Chair Mawezi, who has led Hands Off Uhuru for over 2 years. And Lauren, just really want to appreciate all the work you did to get attention for this case. Natsu, just for your powerful support and brilliant analysis of colonialism and the law. And I want to say that I salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, who has fought fiercely for the liberation of Africa and African people and all oppressed and colonized people and everyone in every form of oppression for his entire adult life since he was a very young person in the 1960s. And again, I salute all of you who are here tonight and who are standing to say they cannot put a finger on Chairman Omali Yeshitela, that we will stand as a barrier against any attacks against him. And I do recognize that I, as one of the Uhuru Three, and Comrade Jesse, who is also part of the African People's Solidarity Committee, are under attack as part of the attack on Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the African People's Socialist Party and the African Liberation Movement. I also want to salute my leadership, Deputy Chair Ona Yeshitela. I always have to mention her because her office carries out the building of these powerful economic institutions of the African People's Socialist Party, especially in North St. Louis, but not just there. I mean, the party is an organization all over the world, in many countries in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Europe, and in many, many cities throughout the US. It is a worldwide movement that says that African people must be free. And when we look at the reality that this country is built on the attack and on Africa, the kidnapping of African human beings and the theft of their labor and resources now for over 600 years, then we see the reality of colonialism inside the borders of the United States, a stolen land in which genocide was popularly carried out against the indigenous people with the unity and participation of the white population of this country, then, you know, we have to look at this reality of colonialism that is here today. Attorney Goodman, and, you know, I just want to say one thing. The chairman has given incredible political leadership to this legal strategy. So it is not the law, you know, dealing with the law outside of the whole political context of the struggle of African people who have no control over law. Then that can only happen when Africa is liberated, when African resources are returned to African people and they have self-determination, which is the right to create their own laws. And they say that this attack on the chairman and the Uhuru Three, but it's certainly the chairman, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, they call it a canary in the coal mine. And, you know, I realize maybe everybody doesn't know what that means, but a canary in, you know, miners who went down in the mines took canaries with them because there were deadly gases way down deep in the earth as they're stealing these resources that belong to the indigenous people. But so they would bring a canary, and if a canary died due to then the other miners, the miners would be able to know that they were going to die too, so they have to get out because these deadly gases are present. And so, you know, I think that when people are saying that the case of the Uhuru Three is the canary in the coal mine, it does mean, in a sense, that this is the test case, and that if Chairman Omali Yeshitela is convicted, there will not be the First Amendment as we know it in this country. It will be forever broken. It will be forever transformed into something that is very clearly the First Amendment only for white people. But I also want to say that I believe, as a member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people, under the leadership, as Belinda Parker Brown said, of Chairman Omali Yeshitela, with the mandate to go into the white community and take this understanding of parasitism, that we live in a system in which white people have resources only because of the suffering and theft and murder that we have inflicted on African people, indigenous people, and peoples around on the planet Earth. There is nothing pristine about what we have. Everything we have is dripping in the blood of African, indigenous, Palestinian people and oppressed people around the world. So, you know, it's more than the canary in the coal mine, because we have a responsibility on principle to defend the African liberation movement, because white people historically have betrayed that movement, have been complicit with it. The white left, you know, instead of standing in genuine solidarity with the right of African people to struggle for their freedom and to be free. So it is, you know, we want to go beyond the principle of the canary in the coal mine. We want to take this stand as well. And I want to say, you know, make it clear that, again, that I am the chair of the African People's Solidarity Committee, the organization of white people formed by the chairman in 1976. And our mandate is to win reparations to African people, to return the stolen resources, and to go into the white community with this message that the African liberation movement and the understanding of the world through the eyes of the colonized, the African and the oppressed people, is in our interest to be able to see. And this is the only way that we can see it, is to be organized under the leadership and part of the strategy for African liberation. The chairman was attacked. I think that the whole question of Ukraine may have been a catalyst in a certain way, but I think that the deeper reason for the attacks on the chairman is his stand against colonialism and his anti-colonial struggle and fight for the right of African and indigenous people. And they want to give a life sentence to the chairman because 15 years is what is the sentence that we would get on these bogus charges that we have. The chairman has always known that he is going up against the colonial state, and he has always known what the price would be, and has been, and has just the integrity and the fearlessness to stand there. And that we have to recognize from the white community that the law is colonial law. The law in this country is to reinforce colonialism and the power and property rights and everything else of the white colonizing population at the expense of African people and indigenous people whose land this is, indigenous people who have been pushed into what's called reservations on their own land as the most impoverished sector of all the peoples inside the US. And that law is for the colonizers. Law is for white people. It facilitates the suppression, this colonialism that we're talking about. And the chairman talks about how colonialism is above the law. It's where a whole people has the power of life and death over the oppressed people. And, you know, just the reality of history in which no white person was ever convicted or went to prison or even went to trial or anything for the more than 10,000 terrorism attacks called lynchings that white people carried out in this country. That was legal. That was legal for white people to do. And we know, I just want to say that we do acknowledge COINTELPRO, that is one of the forms of the US government's attack on the right of, on the struggles of African and indigenous peoples inside the borders of the US. It is one of many, and that was legal. They carried it out, you know, under the law. So I just want to say to white people that this is a struggle for anti-colonial free speech. We have to defend that. We have to recognize that African people have a right to struggle for their freedom, and that, you know, that this is the way that we can join in solidarity with African people and the people on the planet Earth. And we support Chairman Omali Yeshitela. It puts us in a relationship of solidarity with the right of the Palestinian people, the right of people in Venezuela and Nicaragua and all throughout Africa to struggle for their freedom and liberation, and to end our allegiance to this colonial state, and to be able to join the future of this planet. So this is what the chairman represents. He represents the future for all of us. I know that a lot of white people are here because we want to see a world in which white people can have a positive relationship to African people, indigenous people. How do we do that? We do that under the leadership of the African liberation movement. Then it's not charity, it's not a favor, it's genuine reparations, the return of the stolen resources, and a principled relationship. It's our self-criticism to African people that lets us join the world. So, you know, this is the time we want to end our self-imposed isolation from the rest of the world. The future of humanity is here in African resistance, Palestinian, and the resistance of the peoples on the planet Earth. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, all out to August 31st. We're gonna have a huge rally here in St. Petersburg, Florida, under the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru movement. Gotta be here on that Saturday, all out to the trial, which begins at Tampa Federal Court on September 3rd. Uhuru, and unity through.
Uhuru, unity through reparations. Thank you so much, Chairwoman Penny. And this is truly a historic moment. And as the leadership of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Penny continues to shore up that wedge between these government counterinsurgent attacks and the African People's Socialist Party. And that, as she so eloquently explained, that is why the government is targeting her and Jesse Neville. So again, Red Scare tactics are not new. Counterinsurgency tactics are not new. What is different between now and the 20s and the 60s are that it's the presence of the brilliant strategy by the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, Omali Yeshitela, who put in place the solidarity strategy, which specifically was designed to support the Black Power programs of the Uhuru movement. And that support right now also includes being part of this pushback, part of this counterinsurgency that is saying hands off Uhuru, touch one, touch all. So again, we want to really call on people to join the Uhuru Solidarity movement. And also tonight's camp event is specifically a call to join the Legal Defense Support Committee. So we want to invite law students, paralegals, attorneys, anyone who's interested in this work to support the privileged legal team, the attorneys who you heard from this evening, to support that work throughout the trial period and beyond. We meet twice a month on Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. Just again, want to so appreciate Chairwoman Penny Hess and all the work she has done and the stand she has taken, which is truly historic. And I want to pass it back to Belinda for the next presenter.
Oh, wow, wow. Thank you, Zoe. Oh, wow. My sister, my girl, Penny Hess. I just want to say that, if it's ever been a time for white people to embrace and get involved with this type of movement, now is that time. And Penny is a great leader for us all. But I am so honored and excited and just pleased to introduce none other than Chairman Omali, because I'm telling you, this is a bad brother. He's a bad man. I mean, he is one of the baddest men that I know on earth today, because of the fact that this man helped me. He helped me. I want to say this. He helped me open up my eyes to the fact of the truth that we as Black people here in America was never free. I was running around here thinking I'm free as a bird, and come to find out, even though the change was off, but they had wrapped the chains around my mind, had me thinking something, that wasn't true. And now this case proves that. It proves that when anytime anybody stand up like Chairman Omali and speak truth to power, the way this man have spoken it, to open up our eyes and our ears as Black people here in America, so that we can really see that they never intended for us to be free in the first place. When we say that, we see all the things that the Uhuru movement is doing, with some of the things we have mentioned today, about to bring us liberation and to bring us freedom into our communities, to give us that sustainability as Black people, to help us build economic power for ourselves. This man, he has the plan. And this is the reason why that the FBI or our government would want to attack a person like this man. Chairman Omali is the founder and the leader of the Uhuru movement, chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. Chairman Omali is a worldwide revolutionary leader of the I said I could pronounce that word, but he who has been fighting for freedom, reparation, and liberation for African people everywhere for over 60 years. He is also the co-founder and the chair of the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparation. He is the primary target of the FBI attack on the Uhuru movement, and is one of the Uhuru 3 that is facing the federal indictment on these bogus charges of being a Russian agent. Chairman Omali, open up your mic and come on in. You a bad brother, and we're so glad to have you here with us tonight. Go ahead and unpack this thing for us. Take us where we need to be. Open up our minds and get us to really understand why everybody need to be on board with this, need to get involved with this. Thank you, Chairman Omali. Go right ahead.
Uhuru. First of all, I'd like to express my deep and most profound appreciation to you, Sister Belinda Parker Brown. This meeting does not give you an opportunity or us an opportunity to say anything about just the heroic struggles that you are and have been involved in Louisiana. Most incredibly difficult place to be involved in struggling, partially because most people ignore what is happening in Louisiana or not that much aware of it. But I want to thank you, and I want to thank your co-host, Comrade Zoe, whom I've known for a very, very long time, the extraordinary legal team that we have, and some of whom represented in this meeting, like Angela Mutaki and Comrade Leonard Goodman, who is the one who authored the motion to dismiss these charges. Brilliant piece of legal work that he did for a number of reasons, not only because of what it draws out in terms of law, but what it draws out in terms of history of the African People's Socialist Party, what we believe, and therefore something that clearly makes ridiculous the charges being made against us. Lauren Reagan, the Civil Liberties Defense Center, who, as has already been said, out of the gate, she was working with us, helping us to locate lawyers and played some role in even the lawyers that we are talking about now being here with us. And our dear Comrade Natsu, for a number of reasons, she's dear to us, but not the least of which, of course, is the really important work that she's been doing around the relationship of law and settler colonialism and what's characterized as race. I'm sorry that Comrade Jennifer Jones couldn't be here in person, but we heard the statement that she made, and we're very glad to be working with her. She gives us an opportunity to reconnect in a really good way with the struggle of the indigenous people who are living in concentration camps today that are referred to as Indian reservations. I think it's meaningful that Nasu would be here. And then we have the case of Leonard Peltier, which is the indigenous man represented by Jennifer Jones and the other forces are working to free him. And of course, I have much appreciation for the two co-defendants, I guess, of that's charged with these ridiculous accusations that I'm faced with. My wife, Omali Yeshitela, would be here ordinarily, and she'll be here later. But one reason she's not here is it's related to what it is that we are about and why we are being attacked. And that's this economic development programs that function as a capacity, part of our capacity to achieve dual power. When we say dual and contending power, because we develop a strategy that recognizes that colonialism requires the servitude of a colonized people. It requires the ability to function as a host, sucking all the blood and resources from the colonized people, their land and territories and things like that. And that part of the struggle that we have to be involved in, a critical aspect of it, is to build our own capacity, to take our freedom back, to take our ability to be a self-determining people, put it in our own hands, as opposed to allowing it to lay there and be used as a weapon against us. So Omali Yeshitela, we've just initiated, we've just completed mostly the process of opening up a new bakery cafe in St. Louis, Missouri. And that's something that she's digging in on, and with a whole team of other people working with her. So I wanted to say that. And I think it's important for me just to try to briefly say some things, because most of what's been said has just been brilliant, and it captures much of what I would be talking about. Except one thing I want to say for sure, that I want to be clear, is that we are determined to be free, period. That I did not get involved in this movement more than 60 years ago to get me out of prison or to keep me out of prison. The fact is that African people live in a state of near slavery here and around the world. And colonialism is simply another form of slavery, when a foreign and alien power has taken for itself the capacity of a people to feed, clothe, and house itself. And a foreign and alien power has absconded, if you will, with the control of the productive forces of a people. Productive forces meaning the land that's necessary to produce, the equipment, materials necessary to produce, and the people with the knowledge to do the producing. All of that's under control of a foreign and alien power. And because of that control, you see this big distinction in how Africans and other colonized people around the world live as compared to the colonial powers and the colonial people. And that's why, you know, on this land that we on today, on the concentration camps referred to as Indian reservations, where people have a lifespan someplace in the 50s, early 50s at most, on their own land. Somebody else is sucking the resources from the land. And people are not only live in terms of a dire poverty, as is true, but also humiliation is imposed on us as a matter of course all the time. It is expected that we will be humiliated and that we will enjoy it. So I want to say that we are struggling against this colonialism, but it's more than just struggling against colonialism as a policy. When Portugal, impoverished Portugal struck out something like 600 years ago and attacked Africa, an attack on Africa that is responsible for my being in St. Petersburg, Florida today, that is responsible for most of the African people in this country being here today. This attack, this war that was initiated against Africa, that resulted in something like a third of the African population. That is to say, at the time, it was estimated there were 600 million Africans that existed on the continent of Africa, and they killed something like 200 million African people died in this whole process of dark Europe that made this assault on us. So the thing for us is to change this relationship. It's not just to keep me from getting out of going to jail. It's to change this relationship. That's what I'm about. That's the reason that we're under attack. It's an attack on African people that we are looking at. And yes, the question of free speech is something that affects everybody. We are not confused about that question. But the attack on me, on the Uhuru movement, is an attack on African people, not just radicals or anything like that. But the fact is that the whole colonial system rests upon an edifice, rests upon a foundation of colonialism, of colonized people, the suppression, theft of our rights, our resources, our dignity, as a matter of course. It's in fact, it permeates all of the culture that's in the country. So people expect that and do not find it to be an abnormal thing. But the problem is that this is not just the policy we're talking about. We're talking about something that has become a mode of production. It's a process within which all life is created and produced and reproduced, not just for Black people, for all the people, for people all around the world, in China, Russia, throughout Europe, and for white people as well. There's a parasitic kind of social system that came into being. And if there's a difficulty in understanding this, even from people who used to say that they believe that such a thing as how do we characterize a mode of production, that we live on a capitalist mode of production. Nobody, I mean, the best and brightest of the left, white left, was able to say that. But to say we live under colonial mode of production is where they have a problem. Because then they have conceded the fact that there is such a thing as a mode of production. And that's really important because that gives us some kind of science to base our work that we're doing on. And so it's not just ongoing being on this treadmill that we might work very hard and very long hours, et cetera, but we don't go anywhere. There must be a to what end that we're fighting for. Why are we just involved in a movement to get somebody out of prison? Are we involved in just a movement because the police killed the latest person, et cetera? Is there something greater that these contradictions, specific contradictions, are there universal contradictions? Is there a universal contradiction? We say there is. It's the mode of production. It's the way that human beings come together to produce and reproduce real life, which is an absolute necessity. It's the driving force in all human society, the production and reproduction of human life. So we're saying that Portugal may have started off as a policy, but once he kicked it off, and once it saw and set terms for others who lived in this territory that we now call as Europe, but this is how you can make it. And others engaged in this process, attacking Africa, and then kidnapping Africa, dispersing us all around the world, creating for the first time in human history a single world economy. It came on the back of African people, and then the peoples of the world, what we're talking about, it's really important for us to understand. So that's the thing that informs us, that drives us, et cetera. We're gonna be free. And the problem for our oppressors is that they built the system on a fault line, this fault line of colonialism. It's like every time the oppressed is in motion or tries to move, it sends shudders throughout the system that they have. And that's their problem. They've created this system on top of the oppression of everybody else. So that's what we're fighting with. I want to say that, and I want to say just quickly, this question that we are grappling with now is connected to the whole issue that we've been talking about. In terms of the First Amendment is what we're saying, defend, the rights, based on the First Amendment, Bill of Rights. I agree. Defend the case based on the Bill of Rights, on the First Amendment, et cetera. But the point is that when this Bill of Rights, as it has been said, when this First Amendment was ratified by the United States Congress, it was in 1791. And it was not for us because 1791, we were living under the lash. We were living with rape and pillage being an ordinary, commonly recognized a feature of our existence. Not just Africans here, but all around the world, this is what we were living with. So the First Amendment was not for us. And it should be something that should alert white people who may think otherwise, that it's all right for them to take our First Amendment right because they don't like what we believe in. They don't like what we have to say. But the problem with that is, if it was not for us, who was it that the First Amendment and the Bill of Rights were created for? It was created for colonizers who had come here running from tyranny, running from oppression in Europe, where the divine right of kings was the only law that was applicable. So people could do, the king and the church could do what they wanted to do to people. And now they get to a place where they say, no, that shouldn't happen anymore. We want the right to have free speech. We want the right to have freedom of assembly. We want the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. They said all of these things. They fought and they created this, but they created a freedom to oppress, because whose land was it that they were on in the first place, except the indigenous land? Who was it who were forced to labor for free on this land in the first place, except African people? So they fought for and won the right to oppress us and much of the world, as it turned out. Now what is happening is that we are pushing for is it to become understood that what is happening also is you open the door for your own oppression, because it wasn't created for us, it was created for you. And what they would do is use someone that they assume to be unpopular enough so that it can be generally accepted by the colonizer population itself. It's all right, get them. get them. And sometimes even people who are supposed to be progressive Africans fall into that trap as well. If they talk about get Trump and take free speech, or get somebody we don't like, take the First Amendment right. And that's sacrificing the rights for free speech, and we don't want to do that. So I wanted to make those statements. And finally, what I would say is this, that this campaign that we're involved in, we're asking people to be in St. Petersburg, Florida, in great numbers on August 31st. And there are going to be a lot of people here on August 31st. I mean, we've got commitments throughout the country, you know, from a diverse group of forces, from everybody from Jill Stein, and I think Cornel West will be represented, and I think there would be Charles Barron, you know, and Belinda Parker Brown, who we're just looking at here, is going to be here. And Marshall Adebayo, people from all over are going to be coming in to St. Petersburg, Florida, for the 31st. And that's in preparation in part for what we're going to be doing, going to that courthouse in Tampa, Florida, right across the bridge from here. But the thing is, we say, come now, if you can. Because all of this is happening on the what we've characterized as Freedom Summer. Freedom Summer 2024, which is occurring something like 6 years after the Freedom Summer Mississippi. This is the Freedom Summer that introduced many people who had never heard, never seen her before to Fannie Lou Hamer. This, the Freedom Summer is of 1964 that was organized by Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee primarily, is where you also had two whites and an African who were attacked in a very serious way. Schwerner and Goodman, two whites, and James Chaney, an African, who were killed because they went into Mississippi and they were fighting around some of the same issues we're talking about now. Voting rights. I participated in a movement for voting rights. I did. Madison, Florida, they threatened to kill me, and almost in Alachua, Florida, where I took people to vote, they were going to put me in jail as well. We fought for this, to have freedom to participate in elections. Yet one of the things that they are charging us with is running candidates in 2017 and 2019 for city council. And they say because the Russians paid for that. And I'm saying that's a violation of the very same Voting Rights Act that they said that I fought for. The same civil rights that I fought for that Joe Biden as a senator was opposed to. So I think it's, and I also want to say that related to that, Akilia Nai, who was one of the candidates in 2017 and 2019, Jesse Neville was the other. She just ran for the same office where the election was yesterday. And I'm making this point, and we came into that election, we didn't have any resources, we didn't have any organization specifically for that because we were preoccupied with this case. But the thing is that if the Russians paid for it and made it happen in 2017, 2019, are they saying that they're gonna rearrest her for participating in the election on yesterday? Are they saying the Russians did that too because she ran on reparations? Because she ran in opposition to gentrification, because she ran on the platform of free speech, the right to free speech. That's what she just did. So this is what we are pursuing. And we say that just in terms of Mississippi, and some of you Google the Mississippi Freedom Summer, Google Mississippi Freedom Summer, you get a sense of what all of that was about. But Freedom Summer, it resulted in people coming from everywhere, working throughout Mississippi, doing political education, going door to door, campaigning, organizing people. That's what we have to do. That's what this Freedom Summer is doing. That's why you're going to hear from Emmanuel, who is going to be talking about the reports from the work that we've been doing, calling on people to do this kind of work, the outreach, building, educating masses of people on the bottom of this thing where the power really lies. So we want that to be happening. And Freedom Summer is 1964. And think about what happened. 1964, you also had the passage of what? The Civil Rights Bill, 1964, comes out of Freedom Summer. 1965, the Voting Rights Act comes out of Freedom Summer. 1966, the Black Power demand comes from Mississippi. All of this is graduating from Freedom Summer. You had this entire process of development, and we are part of that right now. As a former SNCC organizer, I am working and carrying out that mission that began in Freedom Summer then, and Freedom Summer is happening now. We say, everybody come now if you can. Certainly be here August 31st, certainly be here September 3rd, but if you can come tomorrow, if you can catch a red eye tonight, come into St. Petersburg, Florida, because there's a lot of work to be done. There's knocking on doors, there's passing out flyers, there's putting up banners, there's standing on street corners, proselytizing around this case and educating masses of people. One thing that must happen, we must not allow them to disguise or obscure the fact that this is an attack on African people. This is absolutely necessary. So the government can take us to trial. They can take us because they came with guns. And they came with concussion grenades and things like that and armored vehicles. So they can take us to trial. But what has to be clear to the whole world, that it is an attack that they're making on African people's right to be free. And what this contributes to, as someone has already alluded to, perhaps it was not so, I'm not sure, that they're attacking the very fabric, the ideological and legal fabric of the country. They are involved in imploding the entire thing themselves. Every attack they make on us is an attack on what they say holds dear and what is foundational to the system that we have here. So come to St. Petersburg, Florida. Come now if you can. If you can't come now, come tomorrow. If you can't do that by next week, then come on the 31st. Sometime between now and the 31st, come then, and certainly come and be prepared to be at that courthouse on September 3rd. We need to have so many people here that they will have to have trial in the stadium. So I just want to express appreciation to everybody who's on with us, and I hope that people are clear that we have to be free. And there's no compromise on the question of freedom. There's no compromise there. And Uhuru.
Uhuru, Uhuru, Chairman. Yes, we salute you. Wow, Chairman Omali is the worldwide revolutionary leader and the theoretician who has been fighting for our freedom. Uhuru, 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 for everybody everywhere. Everybody everywhere. I mean, that's a bad brother. That's all I have to say about that. And come now, because the fight is right now. It's right now. So we asking everybody to come now. Come now. He said it and he mean it. Come now, because the fight is right now. It's happening right now as we speak. Thank you, Zoe. Go ahead, Zoe, because I just love to hear the chairman. You know, we really appreciate him and salute him as being one of the greatest revolutionary leaders that we have in this 21st century. Thank you, Chairman.
Uhuru, yeah, I just want to reiterate that call to get to Tampa, excuse me, because, you know, it is like the chairman said, this is going to be a case that's won in the streets. The people have to show up, and and this campaign has been mushrooming. So we're really excited to be going to Tampa, Florida, for the August 31st mobilization to defend Chairman Omali Yeshitela and also for the Tampa federal courthouse trial. So we want to be there and influence the jury as well as the community. We are going to move on to our question and answer session. I think we may have shortened that a little bit because I know we're running up to the 9 o'clock hour. So I'm going to turn this over to Belinda. Amanda has written some of the questions that have popped up in the chat. So we're going to just kind of, Jesse, should we just read these questions out to folks? and have a discussion. Okay, I'll go ahead and just read the first question. And I just want to remind people too that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to join in saluting and thanking Chairman Omali Yeshitela for that presentation. Yes. Along with very statements. And we wanted to ask all of the panelists who are still with us to come back on for the Q&A. So Chairman Penny, you're welcome to join us up here. And Lauren, I see is on there. Angela, if you're still with us, if you'd like to come back on, the Q&A is open to all of the panelists, to take any questions or make any comments. So,
Jesse, could you go ahead and start with the questions?
Yes.
Okay. We'll read the questions.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
go ahead.
So the first one comes from Mary Wildfire. She asks, seems to me these sorts of attacks will continue and step up unless there are consequences, a cost to those doing it. It is not enough for the people targeted to be acquitted, the charges dropped. There need to be countersuits of some sort. Is this possible, and are there any plans in the works?
Could you repeat?
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, this question comes from Mary Wildfire. She states, seems to me these sorts of attacks will continue. She's essentially asking, she's saying it's not enough for the Uhuru 3 to just be acquitted and have the charges dropped. There need to be countersuits of some sort. So she's asking if there are any plans to sue the FBI and the DOJ. The DOJ.
I want to agree that victory in court, and we're fighting for that. I want to say we've got an incredible team of lawyers. If it's left to the issue of law, we'll win. We'll beat them. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But it's not over, because their objective was, again, a political objective. And they will not have achieved their political objective if we are not convicted. And not only if we're not, even if we are convicted and the conviction doesn't do anything to stem the struggle that African people and others are involved in, it will not be completed. Therefore, it will continue. That's why I'm a little disappointed sometimes when I hear people keep saying, well, COINTELPRO, it's more than COINTELPRO. COINTELPRO was just the face that we came to know of a particular iteration of oppression that was initiated by the colonial state. So I think the consequence will be, we're in the process with this. This is what we characterize as a counteroffensive. And a counteroffensive, not just in terms of fighting back against the charges, which are really important, but building a political movement, an anti-colonial free speech, an anti-colonial human rights movement that automatically locks us all into the same kind of movement that gives meaning to the statement made many years ago during Vietnam, many Vietnams, two or three fronts that's being initiated by people who are fighting for freedom. Because the more people who recognize, we don't have to be in the same organization. People are trapped now thinking that there's no alternative. There's a farce that's happening today where people are celebrating in some obscene ceremony that presupposes that they're going to determine what the world looks like, control the world. They call it a party convention. And people feel like there is no alternative except that. But there is an alternative. We are it. And we were in the 1960s. They had to do a whole bunch before they could get away with the way they threaten and trick people and have people feeling that if I don't go for the Democrats, woe is me, kind of thing. 1960s, I mean, there were various expressions of a movement that was against the status quo. We have to pull that movement back together, give it more coherence, give it more direction than what happened in the 1960s, and we are capable of doing that. That's what we're fighting for. That's the movement that delivers consequences. That's the movement that makes it increasingly difficult for them to, they need darkness to do what they do. And if it's not darkness in terms of what's light, but darkness in terms of what we understand. And we're taking the covers off. That's why That's why they come, like they come at pre-dawn and try to terrorize us so that we don't continue to communicate to the people. And that is a testimony not of just a fear of us, but a fear of the people. Because it's not just a matter of free speech, is not just me having the right to speak, it's the people having the right to hear. And so at least if they disagree, there's an informed disagreement as opposed to the stupidity that passes off as some kind of political opinion in this country today right now. Uhuru.
Uhuru.
So I agree, it's not over. And that we're gonna have a movement that can deliver political consequences. And I think that's what we're building right now. I think that's what this meeting that we're involved in, right? That's what Freedom Summer is involved in right now. That's what going to that court in Tampa is involved in right now. Because we're standing shoulder to shoulder this time. We don't have to have a special meeting for people to understand that our struggles are linked together, whether they are from river to the sea. We say saying the river to the sea is an issue of free speech. But they can make a song saying from sea to shining sea when it comes to having taken all of this land from the indigenous people, etc. So we say from the river to the sea, Palestine, and from sea to shining sea, the indigenous people have to be free. All of us are going to be free. That's what we're involved. That's the struggle we're involved in.
And that's what they don't want us to hear. Chairman, you just said something very profound, that it's not only that we have and appreciate people like you that are speaking, to expose and to bring to light and clarity what this is all about, but they don't want us to hear it. They don't want us to see, what real reparation and liberation look like when the Uhuru 3 is on the scene, and the great work that you all have done. So that's what they don't want. They don't want, our communities and our people to be liberated and see, have the power to liberate themselves. So I really appreciate that. Go ahead, Zoe. I see you want to read the next question.
Uhuru. No, I really appreciate that follow-up, Belinda. Uhuru. We have a second question here from Norman Richmond. One of our greatest lawyers of Chicago is Standish Willis, and he is ill. Can the chairman talk about Comrade Willis?
So they're asking, it says Norman Richmond said, one of our greatest lawyers of Chicago, Standish Willis, is ill. Can the chairman talk about Comrade Willis?
Yeah, Willis, he was an extraordinary lawyer. Right on the front line, maybe in the book that you were just looking at recently, in terms of the struggles with the lawyers who were precedent setting and fighting around these cases of freedom for the movement, etc. Stan Willis was one of them. But that's about all I can say off the top, Norman. I mean, that's because I'm in Joe Biden territory.
Okay. We got time for one more question.
Okay. Actually, someone asked if the recording will be accessible for folks who want to watch again. Yes, it will. And Jesse, my understanding is these are posted on the Hands Off Uhuru website. Is that true? Or is it Burning Spear YouTube channel?
YouTube and Facebook.
Okay. Okay, fantastic.
Okay.
Right. Are there any more questions? Did anybody want to pose another question?
This system is experiencing a very severe crisis. I mean, it was been mentioned Ukraine, which is part of that crisis, and speaking out on Ukraine, I do believe was, as has been said, a part of the catalyst that was used against us. because it adds the Russia boogeyman to the black boogeyman, etc. So, but there's a crisis that's real, and that's part of what I'm talking about anyway. And that the system is defending itself from a very severe crisis. It's a crisis even of legitimacy. It's a crisis in terms of its geopolitical strategic hegemony. The hegemony it's a very serious crisis, and there are challenges being made all around the world to it, and it's experiencing this crisis, and that's why it's acting in what would otherwise be surely seen as an irrational fashion. But it's a crisis. So it's facing what it would characterize as an existential crisis. And if it's an existential crisis, then it would say something about the limits or the lack thereof that it would go in order to protect itself. That's why we see these battleships being moving in the Mediterranean, threats to increasing attacks on Russia. Threats in the Pacific, challenging with China, threats, the people, ongoing threats and war against Afghanistan, even though they lost militarily, they control the economic system, and they won't give the Afghans even their own money. They said they're doing this because Afghanistan doesn't treat women properly, and so they're going to. And women.
Chairman, I know that we're running up on time, and we have Attorney Learn that wants to speak to this phenomenal legal defense team that we have. If she can open up her mic and speak, is that Attorney Regan?
Thanks, Belinda. I just wanted to give some information about folks that might want to come to court in support of the defendants in this case, like what to expect and how to give court support in a way that won't accidentally cause problems or extra stress for the defendants. So don't forget, you are going into a federal courthouse. You will go through metal detectors. Basically, try to take as little as possible with you. You won't be allowed in if you are wearing t-shirts or buttons. Hats aren't allowed. Things that would show the jury that you were on one side or the other are normally not going to be permitted in the courthouse. So if you are planning to go, the name of the game is we want to convince these jurors to vote not guilty. It only takes one juror to say not guilty in our legal system, and the defendants, can walk from these charges. So you want to be thinking about, how can we build camaraderie or solidarity with the jurors without being overt about it. If you see jurors in the courtroom, we're not allowed to talk to them. If you see them in the hallways and they're wearing a juror badge, stay away from them, or it could potentially cause a mistrial that would have negative consequences on the defendants. If you are laughing or making facial expressions in the courtroom, the judge is probably going to stop the proceedings and scold you, and it's going to look bad for the defendants that could possibly then taint the jury against them. So just remember, if you are going to the courthouse and you're going to go into the courtroom, you are there to support the defendants in hopefully being found not guilty, and you want to conduct yourself in a way that is in harmony with that goal. Also know that a lot of the courtrooms will have limited seating. It's going to be first come, first serve. And on day one is normally jury selection, where they're picking the jury, and the public is normally not permitted to be in the courtroom when that is happening. So we might want to get updates from the local legal team about whether the public will be allowed in for jury selection or not. If you are going as media, even independent media, you have to get court permission in advance to be there as media. So if you don't know how to do that, feel free to reach out to me at the CLDC. I can send you a sample motion that you kind of need to send to the judge to basically say, hello, I'm media and I would like media access to this trial. That normally will guarantee you a seat in the courtroom, but also will often allow you to be able to use your laptop or, you know, other devices that normal folks are not going to be allowed to have. Many courtrooms won't allow us normal people attending to bring even a cell phone, let alone a computer. This varies on the judge, but we should probably send out an updated list of do's and don'ts if you intend to go to the Tampa courthouse on September 3rd.
Wonderful, awesome, good information. Okay, we're up on time. Zoe, you want to go ahead and try to we can close out the Q&A for now and move to bring it to a close.
Sure. And can I just ask a really quick question directed to Attorney Reagan, since we have her here? I'm just curious, you're saying if there is voir dire or jury selection in the first couple days, we will not be able to enter the courtroom. Will we be able to congregate on the front steps so that we could garner some media attention?
Yeah, so the defendants will find this out when they meet with the judge at what's called a pretrial hearing. So this level of detail will be, you know, fleshed out soon, I expect. But even if the public is not allowed in the courtroom for jury selection, the area in front of the courthouse is a First Amendment protected area. The public should be allowed to utilize that space as long as they're not blocking the stairs or blocking ingress and egress. And sometimes the court might limit the ability to gather in front of the courthouse when the jury is coming and going, because they don't want people influencing, you know, or contacting the jurors while that process is going on.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, we really want to appreciate everyone for coming out this evening. We just want to reiterate that we do, again, want to call for folks to join the Legal Defense Support Committee. Again, we meet twice a month on Wednesdays at 5:30. We've done everything from filing the Freedom of Information Act requests to contacting law schools to try to invite law students to participate. We have done research and forwarded it to the Privilege Committee, whatever it is, whatever capacity it is that we can help. That is what we have done. So we just want to call for people to join this committee. So again, 5:30 Eastern time on Wednesdays. And again, a call to go to Tampa to participate in the trial. If you need housing or have questions about transportation, you can also reach out to us because we have information on hotels where we would recommend. We found group discounts and that kind of thing. So definitely reach out to us if you think you can make it and have a question about housing and or transportation. So we want to just again appreciate everyone for coming out this evening to this really powerful and so historically significant event. And we want to just very much thank Penny Hess, Chairman Omali Yeshitela.
Zoe, hold up one moment. I think that
yes.
we, for our final announcement, we have Emmanuel with us. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to. Are you, Emmanuel? Are you still with us, Emmanuel?
Uhuru,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Emmanuel. We're so happy to have you with us. Go ahead and give us our final announcements.
Uhuru, right on. Thank you, Comrade Sister Belinda Parker. And thank you for everyone for joining us on this important webinar. On August 31st, 2024, the Freedom Summer National Rally in St. Pete will initiate the exciting weekend-long final push ahead of the free speech trial of the century, occurring just a few days later. On August 31st, 2024, at the Freedom Summer National Rally, with the endorsement of over 100 organizations and over 30 speakers some of them with us tonight, like Comrade Sister Belinda Parker. We will, with one voice, say that free speech is a red line and hands off the Uhuru movement. We are calling on everyone to be with us right here in St. Petersburg, Florida. Go to handsoffuhuru.org, register for the August 31st rally and the September 3rd month-long trial. Let us know that you will be here. Bring your comrades, bring your family, bring your friends, bring the entire community and your cat too.
That's right.
And you're being here in St. Pete while this incredible Freedom Summer project is occurring throughout St. Petersburg, Florida. Join us as we will hold local forums, outreach, and community organizing. Bring your creativity, bring your learned experience or your willingness to be trained right here on the ground. All will have the space that they need to contribute to the Freedom Summer Project. Forward to August 31st, we will win. We are winning. We will see you there. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Freedom, everybody. Freedom, freedom, freedom. You know, I know we have a lot of attorneys, paralegals, researchers, you know, to be a part of this phenomenal, this very powerful legal defense team that have been, I mean, moving and shaking. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss out on this historic experience to be a part of such a powerful legal defense team when we're talking about our First Amendment that's being on trial right now in this case. So be a part of this historic moment. On that note, Zoe, you want to, is it anything else that we're leaving out? I know that we're up on our time, we're past time, and a lot of people have stuck with us. We still have pretty close to 100 people still with us. So go ahead, Zoe, and close.
Yeah, I mean, Belinda, I so appreciate working with you and just really appreciate your co-hosting tonight. And just again, want to appreciate everybody who is on this webinar and has stayed on. You are powerful and part of this force of the people making this campaign happen that the chairman's been talking about. We want to, of course, express appreciation to our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairwoman Penny Hess, Chair Jesse Neville, Natsu Sayutu Taylor, Lauren Reagan, Mutaki Akbar, Leonard Goodman, Angela Rainey, for all your support and participation and for waging this counterinsurgent and this counteroffensive together. Because again, like the chairman says, this is about African people being free. It's not just about winning a suit or even suing. It's about African people being free, and their attacks, the US government attacks on this organization have only fostered and built and supported this organization, and the organization is growing because of these attacks. So we are not going to back down and stand down, and the charges are going to be dropped. So hands off Uhuru, and we really appreciate everyone for coming out tonight.
And another shout out to the Lawyers Guild in Chicago, right, Zoe? That filed the amicus brief on our behalf. Wow. Shout out to you guys. We need that. That's power, that's force, and that's what we come to bring, the pressure. And we're going to push back on everything that they're doing. I also want to remind everybody that you still can donate. You can support on Hands Off the Uhuru campaign. You know, go to the handsoffUhuru.org, donate, handsoffUhuru.org, donate. And we want to say freedom, 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 freedom at last, once and for all. Good night, everybody.
Uhuru. Hands off Uhuru.
HandsoffUhuru.org, donate. Okay, Jesse, we out of here.